Here it is, man. The Snyder Cut. It's finally here. This is crazy. It's still so weird to think like we're seeing this, honestly. 4 hours later, I got my thoughts on it. I guess before I talk about it, I should say, just catch you up real fast what I thought of, I don't want to say what I thought of the whole DCEU. Maybe just the Snyder films. Let's do that. Man of Steel, not a fan. Didn't really get into it. Batman v Superman, also didn't like, but I liked more stuff in it. I liked Batman, I liked Wonder Woman. I actually like Henry Cavill as Superman. And then the Joss Whedon, let's call it what it is, the Joss Whedon Justice League. When I first saw it, I thought it was okay, I think because the bar was so low, but then I saw it, I think, whatever, year and a half, 2 years later, it was really bad. It did not hold up at all, and it is not a very old movie at all. So, like a lot of people, I was very curious, even though I didn't really get into the other Snyder DC films, I was very curious what his version of Justice League was like, and so I was really looking forward to this, and I'm one of those people, even though I actually didn't think it was going to be good. I wanted to see it because I really like seeing the difference that editing can make and a person's vision can make. And, I'm one of those people, even though I don't like Phantom Menace, I am fascinated by it. Just when nobody says no, I love seeing what a person's vision is, even if it's, not always that great. So I was excited to see this, even though I did not think it was going to be that great. And honestly, I was kind of surprised. I legitimately like this movie. With that said, it is very important to know a lot of the things that were wrong in the Joss Whedon version are still here. And I think they make you aware of that very early on, which is good. Because if you're thinking, man, this is gonna fix all the problems, it doesn't do that, but it does improve them. There's still a ton of stuff that does not make sense. There's still lines of dialogue that you're like, wow, that was in the original too? All right. Though not as many of them. You can definitely tell the long-winded Joss Whedon moments and the goofy punchlines and stuff, but there's still a lot of moments like Aquaman saying, so you dress up like a bat, Bruce Wayne? And there's people right there. There's even some more lines that don't make sense, like Alfred's like, well, for a man who makes his living brooding in a cave, but that's not how he makes his living. There's scenes like that. But the big difference, in my opinion, what makes this film good, at 4 hours, man, I guess I was not ready to enjoy this, really. But it feels like 3 hours. I'll give it that. That's actually quite a compliment. But the big thing that this film does, which is why I think a lot of people should see it and should compare it to the Whedon version, is that it still follows initially kind of the same bullet points, the same beats, but it adds weight to it. Everything feels like it has purpose to it. And I think, the strengths between Whedon and Snyder is very much a visual storyteller. Whedon is very much a dialogue-heavy storyteller. What do you remember from Avengers? Yeah, you remember some of the big fights and everything, but you remember the banter. You remember the dialogue they all have with each other. The best scene in Avengers 2 is just when they're at the party and they're chilling and they're talking. That's what he's good at. Snyder is very visual in what he does. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Same thing with Whedon. Sometimes his dialogue scenes work, sometimes they don't. And this is one of the times where it really works. This really brought me back to watching the movie 300 again. I really like 300. It's silly, it's ridiculous, but it has that epic scale. It has that size to it. And even though not everything in that makes sense either, you get wrapped up in, yes, the simplicity of the motivations, but also the size of, how do I put it? In the original, in the Joss Whedon Justice League, I was constantly asking myself, wait, why are they doing this? Why should I care here? What? And with this one, I never had a question of why people were doing what they're doing, what their motivations were, how they got that motivation, what their connection is to these characters, how they would interact off each other, and a lot of it's done without a lot of talking. And again, bring it back to 300. What lines do you remember from 300? This is Sparta! Tonight we dine in hell! This is where they die! You remember those short but big lines. And this is the same thing, where a lot of the dialogue is not super chatty, it's not very dialogue heavy, but they get kind of straight to the point and do it in a very poignant way. And that's always what I feel like Snyder is trying to do, and only a handful of times achieves this. Sometimes he, achieved this in Watchmen, he achieved it a lot in 300, but he didn't in, say, Sucker Punch, or like I said, Man of Steel. But even then, a lot of people like Man of Steel, and they did get into that big epic storytelling. And with the Whedon one, it just felt like, oh, this is another superhero flick. They're just trying to, get it out, get it done. And what is interesting watching this, even though I know there wasn't like this 4-hour cut all ready to go, I know it didn't work that way, but I saw Whedon's thought process watching this. I was saying to myself, okay, if I was handed this, if I was told, hey, you've did Avengers and stuff, make an Avengers with Justice League, come on, you're good at that, and I was handed this stuff, I too would sort of look at this and be like, all right, maybe I would cut that down, I would trim this out, maybe I would simplify this, maybe I wouldn't do that, this needs a few more laughs, this is very dark and gray, maybe add a little color and stuff. So I see the thought process, but the big problem is it's kind of like going from Tim Burton's Batman to Joel Schumacher's Batman, but they're technically supposed to be the same universe. They all have the same Commissioner Gordon and Alfred and stuff like that. Where what it needed to be is going from David Koepp's Spider-Man to, I'm blanking on the writer's name, but the writer who did Spider-Man 2. The writer who did Spider-Man 2 has done, like Ordinary People and stuff, these really heavy, mature dramas, and now he's doing this superhero film where everything's very, kind of goofy and silly, but he still made it in that universe while bringing those themes in. It was still a Spider-Man movie. It wasn't Ordinary People, it was a Spider-Man movie. And I think that's what ultimately went wrong with the Joss Whedon Justice League, is that he was trying to make it a Joss Whedon movie. He was trying to make it an Avengers movie. This worked with Avengers, let me make it work here. But that's not what people were looking for. And I think Whedon is only good at that when he can attack it from the ground up. Like, he's handed these characters in Avengers and he's like, okay, let me write that. Let me turn this into a story and dialogue and stuff. When he's given this footage and told, make this work, here's the story, make this work, I don't think he's as strong at that. I guess he was even saying that with Avengers too. Like, there was a lot of, make this happen, this has to tie into this movie, we have to tie it into the storyline and everything, and Avengers 2 wasn't as good, so I don't think that's his strength. So it's nice to see a movie where someone like Snyder, who's very visual, I mean, again, sometimes it works against him with like Sucker Punch, that was too much visuals, not enough character. This one, it's pretty well balanced out, because when you have, there's a lot, the storytelling is told visually. It kind of reminded me of Fury Road that way. There's not a ton of talking in Fury Road, but you get the motivations, you get what people want, you get why they want it, and you get it from their looks, you get it from the setups, you get it from the music, you get it from when it slows down, when it speeds up. A lot of the action in this is much better. The Flash moves a lot better in this. Like, when he goes fast, I mean, I'm legit like, was he there? Was he there? Like, there's just these quick little images of him, and it's a lot cooler. The villain is so much better. You've probably seen this in the trailers, but this ties into Darkseid. They make it clear like he's gonna be the big villain later, which, I mean, is probably not gonna happen now. And it's kind of a shame. After seeing this, I was legit curious where this was all gonna go. Well, but then you get the epilogue with Jared Leto, and maybe that made me a little less interested. But regardless, Darkseid looks good. The backstory to this, which was just like, I don't know, a 2-minute, flashback in the Joss Whedon one. I mean, this one, it's like, I don't even know, it felt like 8 minutes long. It was this grand epic battle where you see all the lanterns fighting and the Amazons and everything, and there was a little bit more explanation. It just felt big. It felt epic. And that's the thing with this movie. Even when it doesn't make sense or there's scenes that don't work, it feels big. It feels epic. And I think that's what people were looking for with a Justice League movie. And with that said, I think one of the things people are asking a lot, they're saying, is are people liking this just because they're comparing it to the original? And I don't think that's just it. This is essentially like a 4-hour miniseries. Like, I did watch it in, I think I took one break in the middle. I had to go pick up a car, but when I came back, I finished watching it, so I did have a break. And I think at about the 3-hour mark, I was finally starting to get a little bored, and then it sucked me back in. So that's saying something. But for me, I'm a very visual guy. I really take to visual storytelling, and I get into, man, look at the reaction that character gave, and look at, listen to the music at this scene. So I can see people I can see people feeling the length much more to this because, maybe they do want something a little deeper in terms of conversation and stuff like that, but I feel like it is there. I feel like, like with the villain, he's more of like a glorified henchman, but we do hear why he is in this position. He's not like the ultimate end all, he's the big bad guy. It's like, no, he's like a minion that's been demoted, and this is his chance to work his way back up, and that sounds lame, but the way they show it, and the way the performance is, and the way he looks, and the way they space it out, it feels big. It feels like this really big story with this guy. Everyone feels like they have a big story. Cyborg, man, fucking redemption, because he was like, people even forget he was in the Justice League movie, and they give him just this great story with the connection with his father, and you get to see, like, again, this is very much the visual storytelling. You see how he kind of hacks into things and how his computer mind kind of sees the world now with kind of this computer brain, and it's more visual, like when he's going to, sort of hack in and see people's finance. It isn't just like the Matrix. It's not all numbers. You see like all these different piles of money and sort of these names under it. And it goes to one that has very little money and sees through security cameras, in this little screen, her backstory and everything she's been through. And that's so clever. You don't need a line of dialogue at all. And you also see the good that he does for these people. So everyone kind of has this setup, and they have this backstory, and it gives you the time, because it's so ridiculously long at 4 hours, it gives you the time to really let these scenes sink in. You can really let them kind of sit with you. It's funny because I did not see the extended cut of Batman v Superman, but I heard it's better than the original, what we got. And that's already a very long movie. So I think there is something to when Snyder can kind of really expand on something, because nothing in this is worse than the Whedon Justice League. The only thing I missed, because there's a lot more songs in this, and they surprisingly work. I think they actually work okay. I really missed the Everybody Knows song in the beginning. I just really like that song. I think it would have fit great, in this film. It's a shame to see that go. But a lot of the other songs are really good. And the music as well. I love Danny Elfman. That's like one of my musical influences. Oh my God, wrote some of the best soundtracks ever. But he's definitely gone more softer now. Like, yeah, I just want to kind of help the movie and blend into the background. It's like, cool. This needed like a Hans Zimmer, boom and chun chun chun. I mean, it needed that. This one has it, and it's great. Again, it's so interesting just seeing how the music can make a big difference. There's so many edits in this movie of scenes taken out and put back in where they just really do make the film feel bigger, even though, like I said, doesn't always make sense. But I feel like I got invested, and it was very rare that I felt bored. And I think with that said, I don't love the movie. I don't think this is like one of the great superhero movies or anything like that, because there is stuff that doesn't add up. And even by the end, when you see them lined up, together, that there's a superhero lineup and everything, I was just kind of like, yeah, I like them. Like, they work as a team, unlike the last one where I'm just like, wait, why is that one even there? I don't know. But I wasn't like, man, we're gonna be talking about this for ages, kind of thing. And also there's a lot of talk that there's like, there's a big cliffhanger at the end. Yeah, it's sort of told in the epilogue. It even said, so this is spaced out, again, like a miniseries. It actually says part 1, part 2, and even kind of like they're marked on HBO Max. When you rewind to fast forward, they're actually marked by the parts, and there's even a section called the epilogue, which I was very thankful for, actually, because, every once in a while it sort of fast forwards, my HBO Max is weird, because it'll sometimes just freeze, and then I try to rewind and fast forward, and it'll just kind of get lost in the mix, and they can't play. It's really odd. I don't know what the issue is. But those little markers really help. And again, I feel like this is kind of like a short mini-series, and it probably should be watched as that. So again, I think by putting those parts in there, I think they're making it very clear, look, we shot this. We kind of know this was never going to be released as a 4-hour movie, though. This is because we're letting Snyder do whatever he wants, get his vision out. So with that said, with the idea of, well, why didn't Snyder, why couldn't we have that, from the beginning? Why couldn't they delay the movie and then let it go later or whatever? They never would have let a 4-hour cut happen. They would have cut it down. So again, in a strange way, I kind of see a little bit of the burden that Whedon had with this movie and what he was tasked to do, because I'm sure he, like a lot of people, was having the same criticisms of DCEU movies at the time. They were too dark, they didn't make a whole lot of sense, there was no color to them, there wasn't much motivation or even imagination half the time. So I think that was his attempt to try and totally turn it around, but it then wasn't. Like I said, it should have Spider-Man 2 did. It should have still been in that universe. It should have, make it better, but still be a DCEU movie. And I feel like that's what this is. This is kind of like a Spider-Man 2, to all of this. Because I'm sure they had like a different writer, or a couple different writers. The acting is still very, very good. It still looks very nice. The aspect ratio surprisingly didn't throw me off. I kind of thought that was going to be annoying after a while, but it wasn't difficult to imagine it, like on an IMAX screen, and imagine, how this would be, a really big thing to watch. And, without going into spoilers, a big shout out to the billboard scene. And people who see the movie will know what I'm talking about. I was even. My wife doesn't care about Justice League or anything like that, but I was telling her essentially why there's a Snyder Cut, why it's delayed and stuff like that. I told her about the billboard, and she said, "Oh, that's really fucking cool." And I'm like, I agree. I just thought that's honestly the most emotional part of the movie. And what I like about it as well is that it does still tie into the story also. That they bring that back a couple times. They bring up what's on that billboard a few times. And so just a lot. Hats off, man. That was really, really cool. So I guess if I was to say who's gonna like it and who's not, again, guessing, I can't speak for everyone. Snyder fans are gonna love it. 4 hours, man, and it actually, to me, did not feel like 4 hours. It still felt like 3. That's a long time. But I feel like they're really gonna enjoy this. They're gonna feel bummed that, they're not gonna get, the follow-up to it. I don't think Snyder's had any interest in returning. I don't even know if Warner Brothers would do it. I mean, the DCEU, we have the Batman coming out. We had Joker come out. Yeah, we have Jared Leto in the epilogue, which the epilogue's weird. That was the one thing where I'm like, all right, this is feeling like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman territory again. Like, I'm kind of like, all right, wrap it up. Ooh, you're deep, yeah. So I think Snyder fans will love it. I think movie fans will like it. I think especially comparing it to the original. And I think anyone that doesn't know what Justice League is, what Batman is, or something, don't waste your time. This isn't gonna win you over much. But I I think it goes without saying that people watching this are going to know who Wonder Woman is and Batman is and so forth. I think they're going to get into it. And I think for, movie nerds like me that love seeing different edits and compilations and stuff, I mean, this is really cool. This is a really neat thing to see. And it's neat seeing the other variations in this movie. Like there's the line where she says, "You smell good." And he's like, "Did I not before?" It's like, what was that about? The original line is, "You spoke." And he says, "Did I not before?" And at first I'm like, what's kind of strange, or was that me? And I realized in the original cut, he didn't say anything. The first thing he said is when he's with Lois. So that's one of those things where I'm like, all right, that makes it work a little better. And everything in this works a little better. Nothing is worse. Some things are still the same. I just don't like the way they did Barry Allen, man. I feel so bad. So many of the lines that we were laughing at and mocking, like in the Nostalgia Critic review, a lot of them are still here. I mean, some of them are trimmed down, but yeah, a lot of that is still in there, but he's not as annoying as that version. And he does pull his weight in certain moments too. Again, Cyborg really does. Batman's still great. Wonder Woman's still great. And again, I really like how much they did not need much talking in this movie. How much really was told through the visuals. I really think this is one where Snyder really shines in this movie, in my opinion. This is probably as strong as since 300 or Watchmen. And Watchmen people are split on, and I'm kind of down the middle too. But it still felt big. It felt important. It felt like there's something of value being given here. And that's kind of what I got out of this. Like, okay, this felt like a big movie that had purpose. And we're not going to see how it plays out in the grand scheme of whatever they have planned, but the cliffhanger's not as big a cliffhanger as you think. It still ends. It still says, here's the epilogue. Like, the epilogue is kind of a cliffhanger. And the other thing I'll say is that, is it Henry Lennox? I think it's his name. He was in Man of Steel, and he makes an appearance here, and god damn it, I won't give it away, but he's the biggest reason where I'm like, oh, I wish I could see more in this universe. I mean, I think that's a sign the movie is doing something right, when you actually want to see more in this universe. And when I saw what they did with him, I'm like, oh, I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen more. Maybe they can. Maybe they still can. I don't know. In some other variation in the DC movies, I'm not sure. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I was going in ready to not enjoy it, to think it was not good, but I was so curious to see it. But I actually think this turns out pretty well. It is not perfect. It does not fix everything, but it is vastly improved to a point where it is very entertaining, in my opinion. So, what did you guys think? Did you get through all 4 hours? Did you need to take a break in between? Did you think everything was improved on, or did you think some things were taken down a few notches? I didn't see anything that was worse. I think my biggest complaint is just removing the Everybody Knows song from the opening. That's it. I actually think everything was vastly improved, and I enjoyed it. But let me know what you think, man, whether you wanted the Snyder Cut, or you thought it was going to suck, or whatever you thought going in. I'd love to know what you think about it. That's about it. I'll see you next time. Take care.